What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and I think it's time I make this video. We're just about 2 weeks away from the full launch of Black Ops 7, and we have yet to see any significant marketing for a pretty big experience that a lot of people out there probably aren't going to know exists until you start seeing YouTube videos about it, and that is the co-op Endgame. Definitely stay tuned. Now, before we jump into the campaign, speaking of which, I do want to remind you guys about the free trial for Black Ops 6, which actually kicks off tomorrow as of recording this video. So from October 28th till November the 3rd, there's going to be a massive free trial to conclude the Black Ops 6 life cycle, and at one point in time, it was supposed to include the campaign. I don't believe we've really seen many free trials that included single-player campaigns. It was actually something confirmed in the Season 6 Haunting blog post, but they've since updated the graphic to now confirm that the free trial will simply include all of the Haunting, featuring every map reskin, the multiplayer LTMs, etc. You're also going to be looking at 40 plus 66 maps for multiplayer, which will consist of 10 different game modes, and then all 6 round-based maps featuring directed mode support. Now, that's still a pretty big free trial and arguably one of the biggest free trials Call of Duty has ever done. Yes, the timing is peculiar considering that Battlefield 6's Battle Royale does release on October 28th as well, along with its first season of content. Now, I also wanted to mention real quick 20v20 Skirmish. This is a game mode that's already been announced for Black Ops 7 multiplayer and was previewed a little bit in the BO7 Direct just a few months back. The mode itself will take place in bigger spaces cut out of Avalon. There's Mission Edge and Mission Tide. You can also see images of these maps in the giant graphic confirming what every multiplayer map is for the launch of BO7. I do think at one point in time we were supposed to play this mode during the beta, but something clearly changed, and we're going to have to wait until the launch window to actually jump into it. Now, when it comes to 20v20, I do expect that they'll probably update this mode with additional LTMs, as they did Fireteam within Cold War, and will probably add in other maps and other cutouts from Avalon or other spaces entirely, depending on the reception to this mode day one. If it's well received and it's considered the big ground war of Black Ops 7, then you can definitely expect more content throughout the year, but as confirmed in a recent interview with Charlie Intel and Treyarch, they're probably not going to update this mode if nobody out there continues to play it. But speaking of Avalon, and to clear things up real quick, that locale will be included in the regular co-op campaign, and you'll probably visit Avalon a couple of different times in a few different missions. But to make things clear, the co-op campaign isn't an open world experience. There are still 11 linear missions that you could play with your friends, similar to what you were able to do in World at War and Black Ops 3's co-op campaigns. Now, I feel like any day now we could still end up getting a dev talk or an intel drop talking more about campaign, maybe even the skirmish mode for multiplayer, and especially Endgame. Now, none of that's been confirmed or teased in a recent BO7 blog, so maybe those dev talks aren't actually coming, but I'll cross my fingers for that. Now, with the 11 linear missions that we're going to be able to play in the BO7 campaign, there is a beginning, middle, and end. To make things clear, the Endgame mode that we're about to talk about is not the final mission of the campaign and is instead a separate mode and experience that you're going to be unlocking, similar to when we got Nocturne and Toten after beating the World at War campaign. But from what's been explained thus far, we of course have the 4 main characters that you're going to be able to play as in the co-op campaign. If you choose to play solo, then you could do that. It's just going to spawn in some bots as the other characters. And once you go ahead and finish the campaign, there's going to be a continuation of that story, as I believe we're going to be tracking down and taking out the guild over in the big Avalon space. Now, something you guys probably noticed, which I brought up on the recent podcast as well, is that they didn't end up releasing any early gameplay of the Black Ops 7 campaign. Typically around late summertime, so a Gamescom or another gaming event, they end up dropping, I want to say, 6 to 10 minutes of footage of one of the levels of the upcoming Call of Duty campaign, and we just didn't get that this year. I get it, it's a co-op experience, maybe because of spoilers or because of different styles of gameplay in the campaign. Maybe it just isn't presentable in the same way that previous campaigns were. Obviously, I'm a bit worried about that, as I'm sure many of you guys are, because if they're confident in this experience, they probably would have showed a bit more about it by now. But in all fairness, the reveal of Black Ops 7 was pretty late. I mean, we didn't get the full gameplay showcase of MP and Zombies until mid-August, so maybe they're just a bit behind schedule with how they're going to market this campaign. We could still get some footage released in the coming weeks before the official launch. But as a side note, while I was editing this, I also feel like they almost can't market Endgame either, because if they don't market the campaign first, which would emphasize it is a normal campaign that supports co-op play, people could see Endgame footage and be like, wait a second, the whole campaign's open world, it's over, the entire campaign's an open combat mission from MW3, even though when you look at Cold War and BO6, Raven absolutely crushed it with the open world-like elements that those campaigns offered. And in the case of BO7, I think Treyarch actually worked quite a bit on Endgame, whereas Raven probably focused more on the 11 linear missions. But most importantly, I think a lot of people want to hear a lot more about Endgame, the experience you unlock after beating the campaign, which, let me break it down for you guys, is simply a PvE experience that, yes, you could play solo if you want, but you're going to be in squads of 4. If you play solo, I'm assuming it forces you to queue with 3 other randoms. If not, maybe it just allows you to play by yourself, while there's going to be other squads in the big world of Avalon with you. Yes, you'll have access to the entirety of the Avalon space, whereas you only have access to like little fractions of it within some of the campaign missions, some of the multiplayer maps that we saw within Black Ops 6 and we'll get within BO7. But Endgame is not the final mission of the campaign. It is a 32-player open-world extraction-like mode. I say like because there isn't a backpack or an inventory like in DMZ or Modern Warfare Zombies, but there is an exfil system that's really important for your operator ranking. So here are the few details that Treyarch have confirmed to us, both at the Treyarch event that content creators attended and during the BO7 Direct. Endgame is a proving ground that serves as a culmination of everything you learned throughout the campaign, but turned on its head. It's a social experience where you and your squad need to master abilities and survive overwhelming odds, whereas you break the rules of what you thought a campaign could be. So there'll be your squad of 4, whether you queue in solo and find 3 randoms, or you queue in with your friends, whereas there'll also be 28 other players in the match that you're in, making it a 32-player endless server as they've described. Now, instead of a backpack or an inventory, your operator you spawn in as will have a level. You can get up to level 60 on a specific operator, and you can create as many operators as you'd like to bring into this mode, kind of similar to the operator selection from DMZ or MW3, except you won't have to buy bundles to actually get more operator slots. You can just keep equipping and creating new operators to bring into this mode. Not sure how you level up the operator. I'm assuming it's just as simple as beating some of the 11 co-op missions and just playing long enough in Endgame and exfilling successfully with your squad. Now, as you level your operators up, you'll gain access to new abilities and skills that are needed to take out some of the tougher bosses in some of the higher tier zones, as we'll get to. We saw some footage from the Direct showing riot shields, specialist-like abilities, and of course, even the boost jump. Now, if your whole squad dies, the character you're playing as will lose all progress, which will put you back to level 0. But if you have other operators already leveled up, you can just equip them and then spawn back into a fresh match. Now, with how crazy this sounds, I think a lot of people out there would prefer if we got campaign early access so that before you even worry about the multiplayer or the zombies and eventually Warzone, you could just focus on the co-op campaign, beat that, and then hop into the endgame mode, which sounds like its own campaign in and of itself, but as Treyarch described, is relatively similar to the experience that we had in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, with a pinch of Blackout sprinkled on top as well. So we saw a little glimpse of the zombies in the Direct footage. We know there's going to be these ritual-like areas that you can explore, and you can also tell the skybox color changes depending on the zone that you're in. They've confirmed for us there's going to be a Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 zone, which sounds a lot harder than Modern Warfare 3 Zombies, which only had 3 tiers, starting from 1 to 3. They've also teased world bosses, but they didn't elaborate too much on that. I'm assuming some of the tougher enemies that we've seen in BO6 and 7 Zombies will end up making some appearances through objectives that we have to complete. And it honestly sounds very similar to the faction or act mission structure that we saw in DMZ and then Modern Warfare Zombies, where on screen you'll see objectives that you can choose to do, and if you continue to do them, then you'll progress farther into the story and unlock a certain set of rewards. I think a big question I also have is, let's say you beat the campaign on a PlayStation, but then log in onto your Activision ID through Battle.net. Will you still have access to Endgame? I'm assuming you will, considering even though you beat the campaign on a different platform, the mode itself is unlocked on your Activision account. Now, something we also need more context on, which was told to us creators at a Treyarch event back in August, is that at some point after launch, I'm assuming Season 1, they're going to open up the Endgame mode to everybody. This makes sense considering the mode itself is going to get support and extra content added, so they probably don't want it to be this case where people out there just feel left out of a seasonal update that Endgame is getting because they didn't beat the 11 linear co-op missions. So it's going to be a case of just getting ahead while you can. If you could beat the campaign, you'll be more prepared for Endgame, but it's not going to be a prerequisite for the whole game's life cycle. But what's also interesting is that Charlie Intel got confirmed in an interview that Endgame is meant to have at least 3 seasons of support, so we're going to be seeing updates to this mode throughout the live seasons. And funny enough, that kind of lines up when the same map, Avalon, is also meant to get reused for Blackout, which is going to be an exclusive Warzone experience that we end up getting in Season 2. So they're already going to be playing around with this map through Endgame. They're going to be updating it. This mode will also serve as like the space that you probably want to jump into if you're going for the campaign camos. And there'll also be campaign weekly challenges, which is where Endgame also comes in as the mode that you're going to want to play for that. But since Blackout is using the same map, this gives everybody the opportunity to really get familiar with the entirety of Avalon as one big locale, and they're probably going to reuse a good amount of content and assets from Endgame for what's going to be this Blackout-inspired mode coming at some point, I want to assume in February. And the last thing I'll end with is that I feel like Zombies players are really going to eat this up. I made a dedicated open world Zombies video about, I want to say a month ago, that I'll leave linked down below, where I go more in detail about how this is essentially a new iteration of Outbreak, just a little bit different, and honestly sounds like a true spiritual successor to Modern Warfare Zombies. I mean, we're talking pack-a-punch weapons, right, which you could hear being fired in the Black Ops 7 Direct, and the presence of zombies alone also flashes memories of Blackout, where you might be walking around and see a mystery box, or a zombie boss, maybe you find the wonder weapon. There'll be secrets to uncover, and I'm assuming side Easter eggs that really boost the replayability of this mode. I just feel like when it comes to Zombies fans in particular, they're going to be real busy with Ashes of the Damned, Dead Ops Arcade 4, Survival, and the grind just in those modes alone, so they probably won't see Endgame or jump into it until a little while after launch. But as a reminder, folks, I'll be covering this mode day one as I do go ahead and unlock it after beating the campaign, and then once Endgame is unlocked, we'll slowly chip away at it while simultaneously covering Ashes of the Damned, which will also bring through a plethora of different Easter eggs to cover. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. With how big the Endgame expansion does sound, are you guys hoping for more marketing in the coming weeks? Are you okay with this being more of a secretive experience that we're going to be getting after beating campaign? Also, let me know down below your thoughts on this Extraction-like experience, even though there's no inventory. With that being said, really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.